Hi, and welcome to the Spiral Codes of Natura, the first in a series of live teachings that will be delivered to you as part of the Holy Natura immersion. And this is actually a re-recording because the live that I just finished somehow didn't manage to work. So when I downloaded it. So I am going to start all over again from the beginning. My name is Rose, and I am a spiritual coach and divine feminine teacher. And I have been working as a spiritual coach for almost a year now, and have been working specifically with a group of women in the local area where I live in Worthing. And we have been coming together in circle around about roughly once a month and following the wheel of the year, which I like to call the wheel of the goddess. So we got together not too long ago and we celebrated Gaia, Mother Earth, and we did this at Sisbury Ring, which is not too far from where I live. And this was a beautiful, beautiful ceremony, and a place that's really dear to my heart because I always feel like I can connect in really deeply with nature and the elemental kingdom and divine feminine energy. And this is actually a picture of the tree that I hold really dear to my heart. It's very, very beautiful. It's a Turkey oak tree, and quite often people like to place offerings by this tree. We were going to have the circle here, but on the day in question, we actually got there, and the ponies were already in the space not too far away. And when we started to set up, they actually started to come over, and obviously, in the interest of safety, we didn't want to continue, so we had to move it along, but it still worked perfectly well. And we did actually have some rituals in a tree not too far away from this one. So we want to really approach the idea of the natura from a mind, body, and spirit um, multi-dimensional place, rather than it just being all about that linear mind and thinking part of the lesson. I really want you to have this wisdom embodied within you, and so for that reason, I really encourage you to feel behind the words and the sounds that I speak and the images, so that they are really absorbed within you energetically, and they can be really deeply encoded within your spirit, so that this can really reveal more for you later on down the line in your journey. Something may be revealed to you in a way that is meant for you. Okay, so we're going to begin with a little meditation. And this is very similar to the meditation that I gave actually out in nature at Sisbury Ring. So, if you are able to, if you can get outside in nature right now, that would be perfect. But if not, no worries. You can sit or lie down just where you are. Make sure that you're in a place that you will not be disturbed. And I will begin with the meditation. So, if you can, if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. And I'd like to guide you into a different level of receptivity now so that you can really enjoy this beautiful frequency of the Holy Natura. And I'd like you to really take a deep, nice, long breath in and down into the bottom of your stomach so that you can feel your stomach expand. Hold it for a few seconds and release out into the world around you. And again, in through your nose, into the stomach, hold and release. Repeat this process again a couple more times. And now, when you breathe in, I'd really love it if you could visualize a stream of light coming in from above your head, through your crown chakra, down through your third eye, down through your throat chakra and your heart, down, down, down through your solar chakra and into your root chakra, where it will glow. And then when you release, I'd love it if you could envision this light coming out through the breath in your body, out into the world around you. And if you can practice that one more time, so really envisioning that light, that stream of light. And this time, when it goes down deep into the core of you and down into the root of your stomach, please envision it going through the seat that you're in or the bed that you're lying on, down into the earth below you, and deeper still, down through the earth, right down through the layers, down to the core where Mother Earth's womb is beating. And see the stream of light really wrap itself around that core of Mother Earth now, releasing, and really see that light coming back through the earth, back through your body, up through your root chakra, through your heart chakra, through your third eye, and out through your crown. So that we're creating this, almost this stream, this spiral of energy between us and the earth, the heavenly hierarchies, us as a human being, and down through into Mother Earth and Gaia. So as you practice this visualization technique, and feel that you're really being held by the earth and by the holy Natura, I'd really love it if you could spend some time here now, just resting in this frequency, this peace, this love. And if you can hear any sounds, if you can hear any nature around you, if you're outside, or even if you've got the window open like I have, and I can hear in Worthing we have seagulls, so I can hear the seagulls. You might be able to hear some birds tweeting in the morning, depending on what time it is for you right now. Maybe it's traffic, maybe it's just the world that's rushing by. Whatever it is for you, just really get present here and know that you are being held. And if you aren't in nature, then I really encourage you to maybe visualize a place that you like to go to. Maybe it's the beach, maybe it's the forest, maybe it is a tree like me, it's a particular tree that I love. Um, just imagine yourself there, really take yourself there. And I'm going to leave you in this space now just for a minute or so, just to really rest and ground and just deepen into your body. And when you're ready to come back, I'm going to draw you back with my voice. That real peace that's always available to us. So if you'd like to spend a little bit longer here, you can always pause the recording. But I'm going to begin to call you back now to the sound of my voice. It's soon time to return to the space and time, into the place that you were sitting or the place that you're lying or where you are walking, whatever it may be. But before you do, I'd love for you to receive a message from the elementals that would like to meet us next time we go into the natural world. And they're saying, walk slowly, your own steps out of you shall arise, the life of your soul. Fall and do not fall, fall correctly, according to the ability of your soul. We hold you and you notice, we touch you and you notice. When it comes from us, from the beings of the living earth. Return to my voice now. Return to my voice. Wriggle your fingers, wriggle your toes, rest back in the center of your body. And when you are ready, open your eyes. And if you can, try and remain in this state as much as you can, for as long as you can, during this transmission piece, so that you can really receive this wisdom in a different way, from the way that you are used to or accustomed to in most lesson structure. So we're going to start with some images of the spiral in nature. And of course, we have the beautiful shell here, followed by some beautiful roses. And we know that they have a sequence which is called the Fibonacci, which is a beautiful sequence in mathematics that increases exponentially growth. And um, again, this is all about those codes of nature, Mother Earth coming through in different ways. And we have human DNA actually that is in a spiral shape. And I find this really fascinating that, we are as human beings also a spiral. We have spirals within our body that are informing all of those processes, whether that is the process of thinking, the process of breathing, the process of becoming, process of growing, the process of dying. All of that is informed by this spiral DNA. And then we have the spiral galaxy. Of course, we are a part of that galaxy, but when we see and expand our consciousness out into that intelligent cosmos, we actually recognize that we are part of a spiral galaxy itself. So these signature codes run throughout everything. And I feel like this is the piece to really come back to whenever we are trying to reach for that connection to the Holy Natura. So, we're going to talk now a little bit about our mission and remembering the Holy Natura and the primordial wisdom and feminine essence of our planet. How we're going to do that is we're going to explore how the Holy Natura really informed the ancient traditions, such as Sumerian birth of creation and the Elysian mysteries, the early Christian faith, and Celtic belief. We're also going to explore how and why the template has been hidden within different mediums for thousands of years, and how this is an organic stream. This is not technological at all. It's completely informed by nature itself, and why these codes are really beginning to rise again once more. And then we're going to close with identifying if you hold the template of the Green Magdalene, the last of this lineage, and if so, should join us on the immersion that begins in a few days' time. So the Holy Natura is actually inspired by Rudolf Steiner, who was a mystic and philosopher. He coined the term Natura, showed us in the early 1920s, that we do not have to lose our sense of the goddess Natura, despite having moved on in modern thought. So even as early as that, they were already recognizing in the mystic stream that this natural being, the mother goddess, was very important to us as human beings and our path in consciousness. So he was highlighting our loss of the sense of nature, leading to a sense of alienation and dehumanization. And I feel there's a real link here between um, mental health and our time that we spend in nature as a society. Obviously, science is showing more and more now that spending more and more time out in nature is good for us, not only for our mind, but our emotions, and obviously from a spiritual perspective on our soul level. So, Rudolf Steiner really suggests rediscovering her as being key to the evolution of humanity, and he traces her as far back as the ancient myths of mother and maiden, so Greek time, ancient Greeks and Demeter and Persephone core, and through to the medieval times when she became lost, according to Steiner. But later paradigm shifters, such as the archaeologist Maria Gambutas, traces her back even further, and we'll find out a little bit more about her in a moment. So I'm just going to take a drink. So we have old Europe. Maria Gambutas was an archaeologist who found evidence for a matristic culture that spanned the southeast of Europe and Greece through to the Balkans and the Black Sea. And this evidence came in the form of goddess figurines, which she found during her many archaeological expeditions. And these date from anywhere between 6,000 and 3,500 BCE. So she argued that there was a matristic culture that spanned the southeast of Europe and Greece through to the Balkans and Black Sea. And a lot of the contemporary archaeological world was pushing back at this point when it first came through. So it's really interesting now, this many years later, to look back and see how far we've come in terms of opening our minds to this idea that actually, deep in time, we were able to live in complete harmony with each other, and genders were equal because we worshipped Mother Nature and the goddess. And she found the spiral as a common motif found on these figurines, but she also found that the spiral featured very commonly on pottery and temple decoration. So Anne Byring writes that graphic designs, ideograms, were used for thousands of years in Old Neolithic Europe. Maria Gambuta says there were two categories of ideograms. So there were those that signified water and rain, which were V's, zigzags, chevrons, meanders, and spirals, all relating to the snake and bird goddess, and those related to the moon, to becoming, to vegetables' life cycle, the rotation of the seasons, the birth and growth essential to life. All were symbols of the continuum of life and of the great moon goddess of life and death, of cosmos, earth, and vegetation. And I believe that Malta is one of the many places that has evidence for this. And I went there last year on holiday, and I have got a couple of pictures here of the goddesses that you can find in the museum. These were actually taken from the Hagar Kim temple, that you can go and visit. But some of the elements of that temple have been reconstructed in order to protect them. And then, of course, you can see the spiral in the piece from the temple structure right there for you. And if you have time, then do have a look. It's absolutely amazing. All of the different temples that there are in Malta that all date back to between 3,600 and 3,200 BC. Oh no, sorry, that's Hagar King, but some of the others are actually further back. Um, and you really get insight into what the civilization were um, worshipping at that time. And then we have got ancient Sumeria. So we have in ancient Sumeria the creation story, which is again very much a spiral motif. Again, the dragons and serpents, such as Namu, the primordial goddess who lived in the waters in the form of a dragon, and Her, the elemental dragon that lives within the mountain and stokes the fires within the earth. Dragons and serpents were often depicted simplistically with a spiral as that primary archetype of feminine power, primal energy, and cosmic intelligence. And Serin Bertrand, author of many books on the feminine mysteries, says in the Magdalene Mysteries that the dragon mothers are the unseen powers that move the cosmos and the inner workings of the earth. They are behind the great feminine weaving. She says that these elemental goddesses are the matrilineal parentage of the embodied consciousness of humanity, birthed from the flowing lava of Earth's volcanoes and the dark fertility of soil. This is the work of the mythic dragons, connected to the birthing power of women's wombs. So we can see, unfortunately, how the dragon has been subverted and the snake as well in popular culture and myth, especially in the West, maybe not so much in the East, with many stories of the knights slaying the dragons. And of course, the great mothers, Namu and Tiamat, were overtaken by gods. Later on in the pantheon, and they were identified as chaotic and even evil in some traditions. I believe in the Bible there is a mention of this great serpent of the abyss, which is referring to Tiamat, and of course of the serpent that tempts Eve. Again, we are seeing that the goddess is being represented in um, an evil way, when actually she is a lot more complicated and a lot more complex. And um, these flames were kept alive by granddaughters of these lineages, for example, with the goddess Inanna, that we will deepen into in the further classes within the immersion. And then we have the Elysian mysteries, so the ancient Greek myth of Persephone and Demeter. And this really explores how the people of Eleusis would actually worship Demeter and Persephone specifically, because they had this close affiliation with those particular deities as they worked and cycled with the land. But more than that, Demeter had shared her wisdom with the people about life, death, and rebirth. They agreed to help her get her daughter back, Persephone, from the underworld. Unfortunately, there had to become, or fortunately, I'm not really sure, but yeah, there had to be a compromise reached, whereby Persephone would spend half of her life in the upper world with her mother, Demeter, and half of the world down below in the underworld with Hades. So this represents, sorry, this kind of unconscious relationship that we have with the feminine, and how many of these natural processes happen in the unseen realm. And the Elysian mysteries were really a reenactment of this myth, and they would have a series of rituals, and even psychedelic sacraments would have been consumed in order to enter this otherworldly sense of the world around them. And the teacher would speak to the initiates at twilight and say something like, this is according to Steiner, and they would say something like, "It is now twilight, and sleep, which reveals the spiritual world, will soon overtake us. Look upon your human form in its totality. Beneath our feet are the plants, and around us are the lengthening shadows of twilights, and the dim green of the temple grove. The first stars are beginning to shine in the heavens. Behold the majesty and grandeur of life's inexhaustible vitality in the heavens above and the earth below. Then behold yourself and remember that a whole universe lives and stirs within you." So that really powerful image of us as the microcosm within a macrocosm, and actually being able to expand our consciousness out into the world and the cosmos, and that we are part of the cosmos. We are not separate from it. And an integral part of the mystery was about how connected we were to the natural world, something that we have lost over time, and that Rudolf Steiner lamented. And then we have the Celts. So the Celts were around between 600 BCE and 43 AD, and they had their fair share of divine feminine, such as the Matronae, the Cailleach, Cerridwen, and Danu. And they had this tradition of the sovereign goddess of the land. And this is a thread that we will definitely pull on throughout the immersion as well. That the king would really need to be accepted by the earth goddess, the goddess of the land, in order to rule successfully and for the land to be abundant. And we also have that belief in the well maidens that comes through, how they were revered for providing healing and rejuvenation, those sacred wells. We have that beautiful well, Chalice Wells in Glastonbury, which is a really good example of this. And many other wells across this country, and in the West Country in particular, Wales. And we can also look at different myths around this, and how some of them reveal that actually the well maidens were disrespected too, just like our divine feminine icons, and then the land became a wasteland. And Arthur's mission really was at one point to restore the land, and this is really reflected in one of the French versions of the tale. So here you can see the common Celtic symbol. So this is the three spirals, and they're said to represent many things, but one of the things that they're said to represent is the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. And this is actually taken from Newgrange. So our ancestors etched this into the stone at Newgrange, and this is actually predating the Celts by 2,500 years. So again, we can see how far back this spiral codes of Natura goes. And the Druids as well. The Druids, we can't forget them. They were massively influential in terms of revering the goddess, because they were practicing out in nature in sacred groves, and they had this big connection with trees, and how the trees would hold this goddess energy, and they would commune with the trees and all of the stars. And they weren't able to record their knowledge. They didn't want to record their knowledge. They recorded their knowledge by speaking and teaching, rather than actually writing it down. And then when the Romans came, unfortunately, they oppressed the Druids, and we lost a lot of that wisdom. But there are those that believe that we can actually receive that wisdom if we visit places that the Druids were practicing, because they would have encoded their wisdom into the land, and actually the land has so much wisdom to give to us, which is such a beautiful, beautiful tradition. And I really feel very, very, very strongly that many of us have Celtic lineages, and we are going to be following that path as well at some point during our journey in this immersion. So the early Christians, so we're talking more like the Essenes, even before Jesus, I suppose. And they really worshipped Mother Nature as well. They didn't just have this God, this one patriarch. They believed the Holy Spirit was feminine, actually, and it was a mistranslation, potentially on purpose. Who knows? I wouldn't put it past the fathers of the canon to have mistranslated that, so that we just have a purely masculine trinity. But actually, the Holy Spirit was believed to be a feminine. And you can look into the Jewish tradition and actually see that when they talk about the Shekinah, and they too had the divine feminine aspect within their traditions before it became so patriarchal. And we can also see that the flame of this has been kept alive through the beautiful Black Madonna. And the black has an echo of the earth processes over which the Natura presides, as well as those cosmic mysteries. And you can find Black Madonnas all over France, and there are a couple in the UK. And Christian Neoplatonism. So Steiner mentions that the great thinkers of the great medieval school of Chartres were still able to acknowledge the divine spiritual feminine form as a creative principle in nature in one of his lectures. And he says that they taught between the 9th and the 13th centuries, and they were really closely associated with initiates, people who had those profound insights into the mysteries. But they knew that the ancient wisdom thread was being lost, and whilst they persisted with teaching their students by conjuring up these pictures of these ancient times, they were only superficial, and access to the real kind of organic stream was weakening. But we can see that the Chartres Cathedral has so much divine feminine running throughout it. It's got the Madonnas, of course, it's got Our Lady under the earth. And it even used to be, before it was a cathedral, it used to be a place where the Druids would practice their faith, and it had a well, which they've hidden below the church, the cathedral, my beg your pardon. So essentially, again, we can see the crossover of traditions, but how Christianity is kind of hidden and suppressed the feminine in a lot of ways. So what happened? So essentially, persecution was a big reason for the divine feminine going underground. As the Christianity of the Roman Empire established itself across Europe, it became evident that actually the common folk wouldn't really give up their beliefs in the pagan goddess. And so what they did instead was they kind of gave them the Mother Mary as a replacement to sort of allow them that connection. But the common folk were not stupid. I'm sure they knew what they were doing when they would come together and worship the divine mother of God. They were still worshipping the goddess, and they wouldn't be able to necessarily understand when they were in church what was being spoken about if they didn't speak Latin, which they probably didn't. So they would be at the back playing with the rosary beads and connecting into that real kind of connection to the mother through the balls, which are like the nipples, and that creates that kind of feeling of warmth and love and safety in the mother. So, um, although the Catholic Church allowed us that little piece, they actually did oppress a lot of the folks that weren't willing to kind of compromise, I suppose. Like the Druids, and they killed many of the Druids, and they were also forced to become monks. So that is how some of the stream supposedly survived, because some of the druids became monks, and then they were able to pass that lineage on a little bit by speaking it into their lineages and writing about it within their stories in Irish, in particular in Irish stories. Um, and you can see over time how the pagan and the Christian stories are very intertwined, because clearly there was a real kind of struggle for a while between the two practices. Um, but then there were those who were even braver, and they were, the male and the female herbalists that were continuing to practice their magic, and they were the ones that were usually helping the sick and delivering babies. But we all know what happened to them further on the line. They were often persecuted and killed during the witch hunts. Um, and then we have Cathars. The Cathars, they believed all the trappings of the church were unnecessary. So they lived a very simple life and worked in nature alongside peasants. They saw themselves as earthen vessels for the Holy Spirit. So they didn't need a priest as an intermediary, which is very advanced, very revolutionary for their time. And of course, this wasn't going to make the Christian Catholic faith happy. So they actually massacred them en masse, and not many of them survived, sadly. So, how was this stream preserved? Well, we can always find it in myths, fairy tales, and art. And initiates who were smart enough to hide it from the people that could not see, the people that didn't have the eyes to see or the ears to hear, as they say. They coded the messages about the Holy Natura. And we can see this in the Ghent masterpiece. Seven Bertrand does an excellent job of decoding it. I won't try and do that for you now, but if you are interested, then buy the book, The Magdalene Mysteries, because she does a brilliant, brilliant job of showing how the goddess is actually depicted within this beautiful piece of art that would have hung in the church, and still does actually. And then we also have the stories that were already or the oral tradition of fairy tales. The goddess was hidden behind the godmother, essentially. Um, the Christians overlaid the goddess archetype with the idea of the godmother. So we often hear the fairy godmother came in to save the day. No, it wasn't. It was the goddess. And if you look at the older examples of these fairy tales, you can see it in a more and more natural form. So, for example, in the Cinderella story, I think the first idea of the godmother is actually a tree. So that even more so a pagan idea. Myths and legends, such as those of Arthur and his quest for the Grail, reflected the quest that many had to keep the secret initiate flame alive, whilst also lamenting the loss of the divine feminine magic that had been so palpable previous to the oppression. In this way, we are really able to find the clues that have been left along the way and weave a spiral that continues to unfold and spin in new directions all of the time, revealing missing pieces that we never knew were there. So, at the core of that magic, we can really find that we connect with the holy natural on a personal level. And when we find our own way to do that, be that in nature or some other way, in the most organic way for us, we find that we begin to practice quite naturally in the same way that our distant ancestors would have practiced. We don't need to refer to a book to look into how to do it. We just naturally do it. I know that when we had the circle at Sisbury, we were all very naturally drawn to the tree and we're very much drawn to giving our offerings to the tree. It wasn't a very premeditated ritual at all. But because this is something that is deeply ingrained within our DNA, that is something that we go to. It's just the next thing that we do. So why is this coming back now? Why are we having this rising in consciousness and connection to Mother Goddess and the Earth and Holy Natura? So this can be pieced together by a few factors, and some of which I haven't got here today. But we do have to mention the pandemic. Of course, the pandemic was a very traumatic experience for everybody. But one of the positives was that we did slow down and we did have that time in nature. We did have animals that we would never usually see coming out from the wild because they weren't disrupted by all of the traffic and all of the people and all of the pollution. And we actually got to see the world without all of that pollution, what it actually looks like. The air was clean. We felt like we had so much more space. So, of course, that would have had a massive influence on us as conscious beings. And it would have also affected the earth. The earth would have felt, wow, like there's this big reset happening. So essentially I feel like it was a symbiotic process that the earth would have either responded to us pausing or we responded to the earth in that pause. And from that, the divine feminine really had already begun to be a thing. Even in the 70s and 80s we had the goddess culture coming through. But what I feel is that really strongly during this time, there was a lot more talk about the divine feminine coming through for women. And I myself became very, 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 very tapped into the stream and spent so much more time in nature, running in the woods, running in the um, path near where I lived in East Sussex, and just felt that beautiful divine energy. And that's when I really connected in with Mother Goddess. And we also have prophecies, prophecies given by many different peoples around the world, different times. We have the age of Aquarius, which is questionable when that's coming, but whether it's coming now or whether it's happening in 1,000 years, we're on our way. There's this kind of sense that we're moving on, we're moving forward. And we talk about this golden age, this new earth. And we have a prophecy from one of the Cathars, actually, that was able to escape during the mass killing. And his name was let me just check my notes because I have forgotten. Oh yeah, Guillaume Bilibesti, and it was in 1321 that he was caught and executed. But before he was executed, he managed to say the words, "The good people shall return in 700 years when the laurel turns green again." So that was, "The good people shall return in 700 years when the laurel turns green again." So 700 years on from 3021 was 2021. So a lot of people in the Magdalene stream were saying that they thought that potentially this was like a prophecy that around this time there would be this big awakening again of the earth and the divine feminine, and the need for the divine feminine and the divine masculine to come together in this beautiful, beautiful way, and that we could have right relationship with each other as human beings and within the earth itself. And I think that cosmologically and astrologically, and even on an earth basis, it is being so much embodied, right? So one of the guys who I really, really respect and have a lot of time for in the spiritual space is Rory Duff, and he is a geobiologist. So he studies the earth mysteries, and he shares often on the energy lines of the earth. And the energy lines of the earth upon the globe are just spanning the whole of the world. Okay, so you often find that stone circles and other sacred sites fall on these, and sometimes even two or more will cross over. And when these cross over, of course, you get a lot stronger energy there. And recently, Rory identified that these powerful source energies are coming through much more intensely. So, this energy is coming through from the sun, and because of our electromagnetic field being weakening, these neutrinos are getting through to the inner core of the earth and imparting their energy to the inner core, which is solid. So when it expands, it affects the liquid around it, and it creates this effect which is almost like a drum beating, like a heart of the earth, which is what shamans talk about. And the earth's water drum kind of beats more and more quickly, and as this frequency increases and gets more intense, um, the energy lines are just expanding, and shadow lines, which are lines that are coming up near those energy lines, are making it really difficult to measure, according to Rory. But essentially, the more energy lines are created and the stronger that these energy lines become, the more activated we are, and the more we connect back in with the earth, right? And we're also receiving all of those codes from the cosmos that are coming through the sun. So yeah, that's a really amazing, beautiful wisdom piece that I encourage everybody to look into if you have time. And I wanted to talk about a couple of places that I love in particular, which is Glastonbury Tor and Chalice Wells, because they fall on two ley lines, St Michael's and St Mary's. So we have the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And the St Michael's ley line spans 364 miles from east to west. So it covers the whole length of Cornwall, through Devon and other parts of Wiltshire. And it passes through many other historical sites, so do look it up. But Glastonbury Tor and Avebury are the two that really stand out for me. And then the St Mary's line, this traces along very near the St Michael's line, and it's in more of a wavy kind of pattern, more spiral, of course. And it crosses over and intermingles at Glastonbury Tor with the St Michael line. So it really creates this beautiful pattern and this really intense um, energy there. And every time I sit on Glastonbury Tor, I just feel like I can feel all of the ancestors that have sat there before me, just holding space there, and the energy that comes through, this really ancient energy that's just so powerful and beautiful. And it really takes me back. It really takes me back into another world and another life. But then, of course, we have our own meridian lines according to Chinese tradition. I won't pretend that I know where they all are, but I know there are 12, and that the energy of the earth can reach through those meridian lines and communicate with us. And there's a practice, Qigong, I believe, where you actually move out in nature, or not necessarily always in nature, but you get the idea, to clear your energy lines so that you can receive that natural chi energy and unblock your energy centers. So once we tap into these different energies within sacred sites, or even just within the lands around us, we are never the same again. And as the Earth's energy grows, and more people are activated, and the more and more we can have this right relationship with Holy Natura and Mother Earth. So, I wanted to talk a little bit as well about Green Magdalene. So, the Magdalene is a template that is very expansive, and there's many different faces to the Magdalene. And of course, we all know the Magdalene that is the wife of Jesus and is wearing like red robes and very much that womb magic tradition, which she definitely still connects into through the Green Magdalene archetype. We really want to connect in with that lineage that stretches that far back in time, to Anana and the moon goddess of the Shamankas and Namu and Tiamat. But I really want us to explore it from this thread of the Natura, the holy Natura, the green lineage. Um, and this is because, as somebody that has felt so profoundly connected into nature for such a while now. I felt like I had to bring this through for other people to connect into. Because if you are a Green Magdalene, you will feel most grounded and supported when in nature, specifically the green nature. So, forests, fields, rolling hills, downs, jungles, parks, the sea, the ocean. It does do it for me, but just not in that quite same way. And you're able to feel into the energy of the place. So when you visit a new place, whether it's a natural space or an urban space, you're able to feel into that energy, whether it's light or dark. You may even have experiences where you become completely absorbed in nature. You're actually one with the earth and the trees and the sky, or you're able to communicate with or receive messages from the trees, the flowers, the elemental world. You benefit from rituals best when you do them outside in nature, like people would have done when they were practicing druids or practicing priestesses or practicing witches. And you feel like your work in alignment with the wheel of the year or the moon cycles or other cosmic alignments is really what it's about. It's all about having that real close connection with the seasons of the earth and the stars, and you feel the healing power of nature strongly and intuitively. You know to go there if you feel unwell or if you're going through some significant crises in your life. I know for myself, if I'm going through any kind of initiation, or any kind of health problem, if I spend more time in nature, I feel much more healed than I would do if I just stayed indoors, right? Or even if I just went down to the local high street. There's just something special about being out in nature in that environment that is organic, that allows the streams of holy natura to come through and heal us from within. And you may be a natural healer yourself. Maybe you already work with plants or herbs, or you would like to learn how to do that. Maybe you are a Reiki or an energy healer of some sort. Maybe you're a counselor or a guide or somebody that your friends go to when they have problems and they need someone that's going to listen to them without judgment and give them that space and actually hold them in that space in a loving, unconditional way. You might not have begun your journey as a professional healer yet, but you may be on your way to, or you may remember times in your past lives when you practiced. Excuse me. And Holy Natural supports burping, so that's absolutely fine. Um, but that doesn't mean, if you haven't got any memory of healing in a past life, or you might even have some ancestry. It doesn't matter, like, there'll be some stream of your life that has some healing aspect to it, I bet, because I work in a school, so even though you could say that working in a school is not exactly healing, holding space for children on a day-to-day basis is very healing for them and for me actually, because it is challenging at times, but having to be open and receptive and patient for these beautiful human beings that are growing in their emotional capacities and are struggling to learn sometimes, or just struggling to deal with life on life's terms, like we all do, right? But at that, growing up and you're 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, it's a lot more intense, right? So being able to do that, that's for me, that's how my healer archetype comes through, especially as someone that works with children that have learning difficulties. But I'm sure, that you can see there's ways that you may offer that healing out to your community, even if it's through creativity. Maybe you're a poet, maybe you're an artist, or maybe that's something that you'd love to do, but you just haven't got that courage to do so yet. Well, then step inside the immersion, because that's going to be all about growing within this holy natural womb space. And you might have been a midwife in a past life. You might have been a soul doula, or you may be training to be a soul doula. Priestesses are soul doulas. Soul doulas are priestesses. Can't even speak anymore. But essentially, it's all about opening up to welcoming people into the world, as well as allowing them to pass on. So I'm thinking people that work in the spaces of like a hospital or a hospice that are helping people that are passing on, you are basically a soul doula, and you are doing that healing work in that way. And Mary Magdalene, of course, was doing that work with Yeshua when he was on his way to be crucified, when she anointed him with the sacred oil, which we will also talk about and unpack and embody within ourselves in this immersion. So you're very creative. You love being creative, but sometimes you're struggling to find the time or the energy. Again, this is very much connected in with the earth and the womb stream. And we will support you in this container to be able to do that. And you would like to do more for nature. You feel like you have that inner activist within you, but maybe you don't feel like you need to be out there in such a big way. But you have so much love in your heart for community, and you'd love to do something to raise awareness potentially. It could be through one of the creative projects that you decide to do, or it could be something that you take into your work and you work with other women in sacred spaces. So quite often, again, we're going down that intuition line. So you can really see patterns, symbols, messages in nature. You're able to decode what they mean on a spiritual level through intuition. You may use divinatory tools such as oracle cards, runes, or astrology, but really and truly, you already have that wisdom within you. It's just those things are there to kind of anchor you into what needs to be received. And you are drawn to sacred sites, and you feel a need to keep returning to them. I know for me, I'm always going to Glastonbury, because for me, it's like I need to go to reset and to recharge energetically. And I feel on some level that is my soul home. And therefore, if I am not there for a long time, I start to feel like I can't really essentially go on without it. And also, I can't go out without, I can't go, can't speak anymore. It's been nearly an hour. I can't go on without going into nature either. So, on this kind of grander level, I can't keep going without Glastonbury, but on a lesser level, I guess I have to get out in nature quite regularly, because there are places in my sort of local area that I feel are sacred to me, even if they're not sacred to the masses. I've keyed into that energy, and I'm really working with that energy. Um, from a real deep place, because that is what I have been put on this earth to do. That's one of my roles and one of my missions, and I think there's many more people like me. I'm not alone, I'm not special. So this is why I have created this immersion. So, we'll talk a little bit now about the Holy Natura immersion itself. So, today we have covered the spiral codes of Natura, and this is the free piece of the immersion. But of course, we have a further free lessons and ceremony So we have the dragons and the goddess of the land, and this will be in a few days' time, actually. So again, we will be looking at Tiamat and Namu, and we'll be looking at how those dragons were oppressed, and how we can actually serve the dragon lineage by working with the lands around us. So, perceiving and reweaving how grid work serves the holy natura and the restoration of the dragon and the land goddess. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the Celts, we're going to be talking about the ancient Sumerians, and we're going to see how natural weaving of the cosmos was really perceived by initiates, and also how this stream has actually been resurrected somewhat by anthroposophy. Um, and we can talk about the core and the mother and Persephone and Demeter, and how they were really revered for their creativity, their cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And we will talk about how this ancient marriage, right, between the king and the goddess of the land was broken by greed, and again, leading to that wasteland. But we're also going to be practicing some beautiful rituals out in nature. So it's not just going to be teaching, there's going to be meditations, and there's going to be activations, and there's also going to be actual activities that you need to go out and do um, by yourself or in groups. If you have more than one of you in a particular area, then by all means get together and do this. But essentially, essentially you're going to have practical activities to do as well to really anchor and embody into this knowledge and this wisdom. And then I am going to be in Glastonbury for Lionsgate, so that's going to be really exciting because I can then transmit from that potent place energetically. And on the Thursday, again, 2 o'clock, 7th of August, I'll be coming live from Glastonbury. And the ceremony will be about anchoring into our soul template, so our particular template within this stream, to understand what our mission and role is as green robed Magdalene. So this is really central, this piece, okay? And then we're going to receive guidance on devotional practices such as connecting with elemental kingdom, sacred sites and ley lines, following the wheel of the goddess and lunar cycles. And we'll receive guidance on how to honor the local lands and practice the divine stewardship. And we shall learn how to unveil and honor our creative wild strength as we form this bridge to new earth in our community. So this is going to be about unveiling and basically coming out and being like, yeah, I am a magical woman and this is what I'm here to do, because we can't continue to hide. Okay, we've got really important work to do, and the more of us that come out and show ourselves as we are, the more that will come through and be brave to do the same, and the more power and strength there will be in this revolution. And then we have the Green Magdalene and her sacred anointment jar on the 15th of August at 7 o'clock. So we're going to work with womb codes, of course. I know I said earlier that that's like one particular stream, but again, they all weave in together. And priestess of the dragon lines, who holds deep wisdom about the feminine earth and the feminine body. And we're going to learn how her jar held plant medicine in the form of sacred oils to anoint Yeshua as Christ. So we're going to practice working with some oils and anointing ourselves as well as others, exploring how we can work with the oils, as I just said, and channeling wisdom in from this stream, and listening to the wind and the trees, which I think is so important that we come back to that organic stream, that part where we're working with the nature out there, and deepening into Sophia, finding her within our heart space. So the seat of the holy natura within, and the divine wisdom for the new earth. So there's so much rich work to be done within this immersion, and it did actually come through for me during the second day, I think, or the first or second day of my bleed, when I was, just feeling quite lazy, but at the same time, really quite manically creative. And it was very much like a stream of intuition. And yeah, I was saying to my sister, I don't know how I came up with all of this. And um, she had her theories, I have mine. But basically, I do feel that it is because I was being given that guidance, and this is what I am being called to deliver out into the world right now. So then we'll have integration and closing ceremony. So we will have this, we haven't got a date yet for this, but we will have this at some point within like the space of 2 or 3 weeks of the last lesson, so that you guys can really share back, and we can mirror each other in our new templates and our new soul identities. And then we can really close and feel empowered to move forward in our lives in whichever way that is right for us, because this is going to be a personal journey, and you're going to find your own streams and your own ways. So you're going to come to me in a few weeks time and say, Rose, I've found that I'm really interested in this particular thread, and I want to explore this, and I want to do this now. And I'm going to be like, great, go do it, because this is all about us being on this personal journey of exploration and expanding ourselves along with the Holy Natura, and being held by her and guided into the sacred work that we've been put on this earth to do, right? And what's right for me is not going to be right for you, because we're all pieces in this puzzle coming together and working together to inspire one another. But at the same time, we all have our own unique codes and our unique skills and our unique magic that needs to be born, right? So, with that being said, I'm going to run through a little bit of the details of how this immersion is going to work. So, this is going to last about a month, the teaching part, because it's about once a week. And you will have activations and guided meditations, and you have 2 weeks, like I said, roughly to integrate everything. And the teachings are about 90 minutes long. So you need to give yourself a good hour and a half each time we come together. And then you will get guided meditations or activations as well alongside, but it may come the day after or a couple of days later, depending. That will be around 30 minutes. And then I'll set you homework to do, which will probably take about an hour, maybe a couple of hours. So you want to give yourself like 3 to 4 hours a week, essentially. And you don't need any particular materials, but if you do have any essential oils to hand, that's brilliant. I'm really happy, because you can use those later on in the immersion. But if not, that's fine. We can practice with other materials rather than just essential oils. Essentially, it's about you coming to your own guidance with which oil you should work with, and that may be something that you find later on down the line. So when you visit my website, which I will put in the link or in the information with this video, you will find again a lot more information on what this immersion is all about. And then you will click through into the early bird offer, which is only going to be around for a couple of days, so make the most of that. And then you will come through to the Podia page, which is where my course will be hosted. And once you sign up to that, you get straight inside. And there's some logistics information in there with all of the information about where to join the videos. And of course, this is a live teaching, so the content will be added as we go along, if you see what I mean. But yeah, as I said, I would absolutely love to see you inside, particularly if you identify with this green Magdalene template. And I thank you so much for coming along, and I hope that this was nourishing and inspiring for you, if nothing else. And if you would like to reach out to me and speak to me about this immersion or anything that this is brought forward for you, I would absolutely love to hear from you. You can do so at my email address, which I will also place alongside this video for you. So much love, and I hope to see you soon.